Hello, welcome into this episode. Today we're going to talk about must-have contract clauses for you therapists out there, and you don't want to sign a contract without these.
Welcome into episode number 33 of the Ryan and Megan podcast. I'm Megan. This is Ryan. We're a traveling family. We've been traveling since 2020, and we're sharing just some of the things that we've learned on the way with you. So before we hop into this episode, if you don't mind giving us a like, giving us the star rating, and putting your notifications on. We're a little dodgy here at this podcast, so make sure that bell is on so you know when something is going to be coming out that you can listen to. And with that, let's get into episode number 33.
Yes, so today we are going to discuss what you need in that PT, OT, SLP travel contract before you sign on the dotted line. It's important because your contract is binding, so it's hard to get out of it, and you want to make sure there's certain things in there so you can fall back on that contract if you get to an assignment or a therapy location and setting, and they start asking you to do certain things, and so you can kind of fall back and say, well, this is what's in the contract, because you as a traveler sign the contract, but there's also the same contract that goes to the facility, and your travel recruiters and travel companies facilitate that. So both the facility and you are agreeing to what's in the contract.
Yes. So besides the obvious, probably number one in most people's mind is pay, making sure that that is right. That's not even really in our list. That is just a given. You're going to double check that and make sure it's what you guys agreed upon, because that's a biggie, if you miss that.
And that it's broken down how you want it. So,
Right.
you have your travel stipend, you have your hourly. Talk with your recruiter, your travel company, and make sure it's broken down how you expected it to be. But we're not really
Yes.
going to go into that too much. We have some more important ones.
Yeah. So besides that, I think the next thing that does pertain to pay is getting an hourly guarantee on your contract. I think these are a little bit more rare since we've started traveling, but we have it. I think we've had it on every single contract except for one, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know, but
You're not.
I'm not remembering correctly.
So hourly guarantee you definitely want in your contract. Now, how much the hourly guarantee is a little different for all places. But if they're not offering you an hourly guarantee, I would be a little wary of the job. Not saying you can't take it, but I would be a little wary of it, because if what an hourly guarantee is that if they are low census, if they hire a new traveler and all of a sudden don't need your services but don't want to cut you yet, they could just give you less patients and less work hours because there's nothing in your contract protecting you. And so that might mean, oh, well, I only got to work 20 hours this week, but you're expecting 40. That's an issue. Now, when we first started traveling, we would probably say, hey, try to get a 40-hour guarantee, because that was a little bit more common. Actually, we're right now on our current contract, they gave us a 40-hour guarantee. But over the past 2 years, I would say we've realistically seen more like 36-hour guarantees is pretty well standard. I know when we looked to go to Florida, that was one of those jobs that offered us like no guarantee. But
Maybe that's what I was remembering.
We said no. That's what you're thinking about.
Yeah. So to Ryan's point, it's a really important aspect that does give you some protection in the job so that you're not bound to your timeline of being there for a full 13 weeks and then them just cutting you on your hours and cutting your pay, because we are paid hourly as a part of our pay. So always look for that. That means that if you are cut on your hours, they still pay you your full 36 hours as if you worked it. Sometimes we have been in some contracts where we have worked very, very small amounts of hours and we were still getting a full paycheck, which is another like crazy perk of travel that we haven't been able to really estimate how much time we've had like off to ourselves, but still been paid fully for it as a traveler.
Right. Yeah, I know. I wish I would have like kept track of really like this week I worked 35 hours, but since I had a 40-hour guarantee, I got paid those 5 hours, but I didn't actually work it.
Mhm.
Um, and so it is kind of a little bit of a travel perk, travel hack, I would say. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's how that kind of hourly guarantee works. And so if they guarantee you 36 hours guarantee, but for some reason your facility is low staff that week or low census, I mean, and you only work 32, you're going to get paid the full 36 hours. Now, there's some stipulations around it. You know, you got to be available to take on patients. You can't just like refuse patients. If you have a requested day off during the week, you're not going to get a full hourly. If it's a holiday week and you miss Monday because it's, 4th of July or something, then you're not going to get that guarantee. No guarantee usually during that first week of orientation.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the basics of it. The next one that we highly suggest you have on your travel therapy contracts is a 30-day cancellation notice. Now, this is usually pretty standard. For most travel companies, they're going to kind of just automatically put this in their standard contract layout to the facility. But you always want to check that it's in there because it's very important. It's like the little bit of security you're going to get as a travel therapist.
Mhm.
And the reason why they're willing to pay us so much is we're willing to go right there and take the job. We don't have much guarantees. We work contract to contract. There's a lot of change for us.
Mhm.
And so there's not very much stability, but the one stability you can have added into that contract is a 30-day cancellation notice, which really means if the facility say they hired another physical therapist and they don't really need me anymore, they can give me a 30-day notice saying, "Hey, we hired someone, we don't have enough patients to split between you guys, so we're going to go ahead and cancel your contract." But now I have 30 days to kind of figure out what I'm going to do next or what travel contract I'm going to take
Mhm.
next. We've only had dude, we only had one contract cancel out of like the 5+ years we've been traveling, and that was our first one. That was on you. We were both working at the Montana
Did they
hospital.
cancel me?
They
Yeah, they
canceled
did.
you like one month before it
Yeah,
was finished.
'cause
Um,
they hated me.
no, they just finally hired some people to
Yeah.
this rural area, and so they said, "Hey, Megan, we're giving you a 30-day notice." Um, and so then we had 30 days to kind of figure
And
out
that's
what to do.
usually plenty of time to figure out your next plan as a traveler, um, because usually when you're traveling, you start looking 6 to 4 weeks before you're ready to take the next one. So, it's right there within your normal traveler timeline, and then this also works the other way around. So, if something was going on at the clinic and you just didn't feel comfortable, like, keeping your contract, you could cancel, but you would be bound to work for 30 days or until they found somebody else to replace you.
And that doesn't, usually that's not the case if there's something going on, like you get there and it's really unethical and your license is in jeopardy because it's so unethical. Hopefully, you're not getting any of those travel assignments because you have great recruiters. Hopefully, you take recommendations from people who travel. That's the best way to get a good recruiter.
And if
Um,
you want our recruiter recommendations, you can email us at ryanandmeganover.at gmail.com.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or just click the link down in the description of this podcast or YouTube video. But what I'm saying is, you know, hopefully you're not in a bad situation, but if you were to find yourself in a bad situation, you don't have to, you're not forced to stay there for 30 days. That would be where you talk to your recruiter and the travel company kind of steps in for you and says, "Hey, this is not ethical, or they're not putting on this license, we're leaving." But this would be more like, "Hey, I have something going on and I'm going to go ahead and cancel early." We would suggest don't cancel early if you don't have to, but if you really needed to, you can give that 30-day notice to them. Even though we're talking about all this contract cancellation stuff and we do feel like it's important to have the 30-day cancellation notice in there, it's just more of a backup protection for you. Like I said, we've been traveling multiple contracts for a long time and I think we've had one cut short early.
Mhm.
And so it's actually pretty rare, I would say. And so we don't want to freak you guys out that like, oh, getting into travel, this can happen. It can happen. I don't think it happens that often, at least it hasn't with us in our personal experience. But have that 30-day cancellation notice just to protect yourself. And in a month, like you said, is plenty of
Plenty
time
of
to
time.
find another contract.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next thing you should make sure you've got in your contract is more logistics. So, looking at your days off that you're going to want in those next 3 months, your recruiter's always going to ask, hey, you want to be submitted to this job? Give me whatever dates that you're going to need off in this next 13 weeks, and I'll submit that. Usually they approve it, but you want to make sure it's on your final paperwork and that it's correct so that you do have a document to go back to for them to reference, for you to reference, and then also just make sure if they forget, like sometimes scheduling just forgets, and that's understandable. You know, you can make sure you do have a backup letting you know you can have your time off.
I feel like over the years, as we got out of the COVID and the travel market kind of picked up, we have gotten more comfortable with requesting more days off. Now, we're never crazy because you still want to get the job. And so if you come in and it's like, well, you're only working 2 months out of the 3 months you're signed up with them, then that's an issue. But I think we've gotten more comfortable to build in some long weekends for ourselves. If we know we're going to be in a certain area and we want to go see a national park and we want to camp there or there's something like that. So we might take off a random Friday. We don't really necessarily have anything planned yet,
Mm-hmm.
but we take it off just so like we have a 3-day weekend. And like I said, we try not to be over the top with it. But when we first started out, we were very scared almost to even request days off in our contract because we were afraid like we wouldn't get the job. But really, this is past the point. Like you've already interviewed. They're saying, hey, we would love to have you. We're going to send over a contract. And now you're just kind of in contract negotiation mode. And so it's okay to send over your days off request within reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then just see what they say. Worst case scenario, they say, no, this is too many days off. We'll give you this, which might happen if it's a competitive job. But we have found they always
We've
say yes to
we've
us.
never had an issue, and often we're both working for the same company since we've been in home health. Usually they need more coverage. So you would think that there would be more issues requesting like the same days off for family events, but it's always gotten approved. And sometimes we have like extended our contract length to like give ourselves 13 working weeks, even if we were there for a full 15 weeks and we just like had 2 weeks added up in the middle of it all that
Right.
we
That would
took
be
off.
like if we took family vacations. Like say we say, hey, we need this whole week off because we're going to the beach with our family. Then that takes one of those 13 weeks. So we might tack on an extra week, say, hey, we'll be here for 14 weeks.
Sometimes we request that. Sometimes our recruiter thinks about it. And maybe it's a negotiating piece for them. And then sometimes the facility's like, hey, will you just extend your coverage then? And we're always usually okay with that.
Yeah. The last one that we have, which kind of rolls into it, is make sure on that contract you have your shifts delineated out. So whether that's 5 8-hour shifts or 4 10-hour shifts, and then also if you're going to work the weekends or not. If the facility is a hospital or home health or wherever, and they need coverage on the weekends, I would be pretty specific in the language there of are you working weekends or are you not working weekends?
Mm-hmm.
We've ran into that a little bit with home health. Sometimes they want us to work on so many weekends a month, and then sometimes they don't do weekends. And so it's good to kind of have that clarified in there. So once you show up, they don't just all of a sudden say, hey, we need you working 2 weekends a month. And you're like, wait a second, this was never on the interview and all that. And that's another great question to ask on the interview. Do you guys work weekends or what does your shifts look like? But having that language in the contract, again, allows you to say, wait a second, here's my contract. I signed, you signed. Says no weekends if you don't want to work those weekends.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing we do for our days off. If it is a company that does sometimes have you work weekends, we always put those weekend dates into our requested days off just in case they would have expected us to pick up a weekend a month and it just happened to fall on the weekend we were supposed to be gone. What's the use of having a Monday and a Friday off if you're supposed to be there over the weekend? So we also double check that and make sure it's all good to go.
Yep. It's good to have those written in there. Nothing's necessarily set in stone. So like if you do 4 10s and that's written in, and then really they're like, hey, we kind of need you for 5 8s because we have more people on Friday. You don't have to switch your 4 10s, but say you're like, oh, 4 10s is a lot, I'm going to go to 5 8s. You can always talk to your travel recruiter and they can talk to the facility and they can make amendments that you both agree upon. So don't feel like you're necessarily locked in, but you want to get those fine details
Yeah,
set.
there's been times too when we didn't request off like a Friday, but we wanted to make it a long weekend and we asked our manager, whatever, we were like, hey, can we work 4 10s this coming week? And they've always also been okay with that. It just depends. There's some flexibility, but there are some hard and fast things you want to make sure is in the contract just to make sure you're covered. And then from there you can move forward and make things flexible
Yeah.
if you need to.
I did forget one. And one other thing you want in the contract, and that is your productivity requirements.
This is a bonus one.
Bonus one, sure.
Yeah.
We forgot it, but we're going to pull it back as a bonus.
It's a bonus.
Yeah, productivity requirements. And so that looks different for every setting. I'm not going to go through like what your requirements should be. You'll slowly learn that as a therapist if you're new, or if you're not new, then you kind of know this is how many patients I like to see a day, or what point system or percentage, blah, 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 that you're going to have. But if you talk on that therapy interview with the facility and you ask, hey, what's your productivity look like? What's your standard for a full-time therapist? And they tell you, and you're like, okay, that's not bad. Write that down so you have this agreed upon verbal agreement on the productivity, but then you can ask your recruiter to put that into the contract. Say, hey, this is the productivity they agreed upon with on the interview. So then when you sign that contract and the facility signs that contract, you're both on the same page of this is our productivity that is required.
And you know where I think that probably matters more is the settings that we haven't worked in a while. I would say that probably matters more in outpatient because outpatient tends to be, there's a lot of places that do double bookings and they're just really busy. And then SNFs, I know there's the percentage that they try to have you at is pretty high usually. And so, but not realistic.
I think most settings, if you can get a productivity agreement out of them, then again, that's something you can fall back on and say like, hey, well, I'm hitting my productivity that we agreed upon, and so that's good for both sides. We think about it primarily in the setting we enjoy, which is home health. And so there's so many points you earn per day at most places. And so we always make sure that that's in there. So we know, one, we're hitting the requirements that they're asking us. And two, it's not like a crazy requirement. Otherwise, we're going to be like, well, if you're hard and fast on that requirement, then we might look elsewhere.
Yeah. But to your point, it does help you kind of know if you're meeting some of their expectations because you want to, as a traveler, you want to come in and help them meet their expectations, have an extension if that's something that you're looking for at that location. So it gives you some parameters to know this is what they're looking for. I can meet that, or I am meeting it, or I'm exceeding it.
So there you have it. Do not sign that travel therapy contract without putting these in there. And hopefully this was helpful. As Megan said earlier on in the show, if you're looking to get into travel and you need a travel recruiter, get a recommended recruiter. You can get that from your friends who are traveling. You could get that from us. We always love to share the travel recruiters we personally use and trust. And all you have to do is either email us at ryanandmeganorear@gmail.com, or an easier way is click the link down in the podcast description or the YouTube video if you're watching us. That will just take you to a form on our website so we get to know you a little bit better, know your profession, so we can kind of pick some of the recruiters that we feel like you'd best fit with. But just fill that out, and then we will email you and get you connected with the recruiters we use. It's always better to get a recommended recruiter because otherwise you put your name in the thing online and you have 10 billion recruiters trying to contact you, and you don't know if they're experienced or vetted. If you ask your friend or you ask us, We're not going to give you a recruiter that is bad because we use them. So if we're having a bad experience with them, we're not going to suggest them to you.
Thanks so much for listening today, and until next time,
See ya.